Hello, fellow human light beings. This is Mahadev, the Thunder Wizard. Today we're going to go in depth talking about the Huar mantra. This is the mantra for the Solar Flash 5D shift, which allows you to choose your frequency. It's a technology that gives you the ability to choose the frequency that you want to live on. It is the seed mantra sound for the 5D Solar Flash event. It is the seed mantra sound for the healing of the third dimensional state of devaluation. Devaluation is a fancy term of saying self-hatred. It's also, when somebody abuses you, they are devaluing you. So we devalue ourselves in order to fit into this world. Everything is based on devaluation, including our society and economy. I mean, if somebody goes and studies, becomes an economist, what they will find out is that economy is based on self-devaluation. And so our entire three-dimensional vibration is based on either being devalued or devaluing ourselves in order to fit in and to be loved and accepted. And so this mantra is the frequency that allows you to take responsibility for your own self-devaluation and to shift up to the next level. It does a hell of a lot more than that, and we're going to get into that. And I've got a list of things that we can go over so that I can stay on track. And I've got another list I'm looking at because I want to talk about the origins of this, where it came from, how it developed, what it is. Now, if you go looking for this, to my knowledge, you probably won't find it in any, Vedic texts or any place else. I could be wrong about that. I didn't invent it. This mantra was transmitted to me by an ascended master. I'll get into that. So believe me or don't believe me, you won't hurt my feelings one way or another. I'm telling you my experience as I understand it. And it is the chief technological spiritual tool that we use in the live guided interdimensional meditations. By the way, we've got one coming up today. I'm filming this, videoing this Saturday. So we have them every Saturday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you can't make it live at that time, no problem. It will be archived. So I encourage you to watch these and regularly participate in the live ones if you can. If not, go and do, the recorded ones, because we're shifting and changing. But at the very least, it will give you the opportunity to allow this tool, the Huar breath, to empower you. You can hear it in the background. I recorded this sometime a couple of years ago. So I'm going to talk about an interesting thing that I've discovered about the frequency of that, which I'm really enjoying investigating. But the main tool of this Huar mantra, besides giving you the ability to choose your frequency, and besides giving you the ability to shift out of your self-devaluation, is that it is also a tool that is primarily focused on activating your pineal gland. So the pineal gland is in the center of your brain here, and it's the thing that all spiritual practices try to activate. And so you've got two aspects of it physically that are connected to it. One is the third eye and the other is the crown. And it creates this, this connection here. So it's happening here, it gets activated, which then shoots out the top of the crown and is a transceiver. It sends energy out and it receives energy. Primarily energy from higher dimensions. So it allows you to travel to other dimensions, your consciousness and your awareness. It allows you to receive information, outside of 3D space-time. The third eye aspect is it allows you to see things outside of 3D space-time. By see, I don't necessarily mean visual, although it very well can be. Those people who have visions, it's their third eye, which is their pineal gland, which is allowing them to visualize information from outside of 3D space-time. But seeing doesn't necessarily mean visually seeing it. It means being able to sense. You know, the word wizard, for example, is an Anglo-Saxon word, and it means he who sees. It's a seer. You know, wizard just means one who sees. And it doesn't necessarily mean somebody who sees the future. It means somebody who sees reality, the fundamental. So that could be a feeling. It could be an awareness. It could be a knowing. And the rishis, you know, are the seers. And we talk about shamans as seers. But it's not just being able to see. It's about being able to see, to understand, to know. And that's why knowledge, you know, wisdom, again, wisdom comes from, the root for vision. Wisdom, vision, it's the same word. One is Latin, one is Anglo-Saxon. Wisdom means the ability to see, but we translate it as meaning knowledge. So knowledge is being able to see, and that's the third eye. So this Huar breath activates the pineal, which activates the transceiver and gives you knowledge beyond the third dimension. So this mantra will do that. By the way, if you're new to the channel and you haven't heard me say it, and you want to really get activated with this mantra and have it activate your pineal, go to the shop, which is thunderwizard.com. You'll get to this page, and you'll see the shop menu. Click on shop, and you'll scroll below, and you'll see all the Qigong, which, by the way, you should check out. You know, the Celestial Qigong is great. The Summoning the Immortals is also great for beginners. If you scroll below that, I don't have a picture, you will get to the video teaching of the Huar mantra, and I teach you a moving Qigong practice as well as a silent breath technique, which involves the body and different breathing, and how to activate the spinal pump that activates the pineal gland, and then in conjunction with the Huar breath. It's probably, at least in my experience, the most powerful technique you can use for shamanic traveling and out-of-body traveling. So I encourage you to go check that out. So I wanted to give you the history of this so that you have a better understanding of this. Now, 15, 20 years ago, around the time that I made the Celestial Qigong, as it turns out, 15, 20 years ago, I had come to the end of my training. I'd been training, of course, I'd trained in Kundalini Yoga, and I'd trained in Vedic Mantra and Vedic astrology, and of course I'd been doing all of my research into runes and rediscovering all of that and unearthing all of that stuff and creating the synthesis that I am continuing to do. And so I was still involved in all of that, and I wanted to go further. I wanted to achieve mastery in especially my Taoist training. I had come to the end of what my teacher could teach me, and without getting into any of the personal drama and the details, I ended up having to leave training with him and with his teacher. And luckily I was able to go around them and train with other people that were higher up in the lineage. But I still had come to the end of what could be known and learned, at least what I could get at. So I started trying to find other places to go. And I was synthesizing other traditions and other energy practices which you should not do. This is why when you train in a lineage, you should not train in a second lineage at the same time, because each lineage has a specific frequency, and when you start mixing different frequencies randomly like that, you can create a sine wave which actually starts destroying you from the inside out. And so this was happening to me because I was, I knew that I was doing this, but I was actively seeking to go beyond where I was and find more, more practices. And the energies were starting to to clash within me. And so I was having huge energy problems. I had major headaches. And so in meditation, and I'd never done this before. This is, 20 years ago. So I didn't know anything about light beings or, the skills I have now to just close my eyes and connect and, interact and communicate. I didn't have any of that. And I wasn't being visited by, extraterrestrial light beings or any of the kind of crazy stuff that's been going on the past couple of years. But in meditation, I closed my eyes and I said, if there's any ascended masters that are working with me, I need your help. I need a one-word mantra or breath or something to balance these energies. Immediately I saw it. I saw the Hool breath. If you've done the Hool breath meditation, by the way, it's free. You can go on to just YouTube and type in HUUL, or if you know how to search within a YouTube channel, you can search my YouTube channel and just type in HUUL, and you'll find me teaching you. You'll see me 20 years ago teaching you exactly how to do the Hool breath and what it all means. So this was instantly given to me. That was very subtle. If I hadn't been listening, I would have, I didn't know what I know now, but my thought was, I think I just made that up, but I'm going to try it anyway. And I followed the intuition that, was very subtly given to me, and boom, my energy was immediately balanced. All of the energy oscillations and dysfunctions and the headache and all of that immediately vanished. And I felt this peace and this power and this connection to earth, and it was very grounding and healing. And I went, holy crap, what the hell was that all about? I kept practicing it, and it kept getting better and better. And it led me to other practices like the Heaven Earth Qigong meditation, which you can also find at the thunderwizard.com shop. And, of course, I ended up teaching it publicly. But the first thing I did is I started teaching it to my students. At that time I had, physical students I was teaching, and I started teaching them that because I wanted to see. And same kinds of things were happening with them. It was very balancing and healing, and it was this practice that everybody could do. And if you just did that, if you spent every day doing the Hool breath for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, for an hour, you wouldn't need anything else. I saw that. This was one of those one practice does all kinds of practices that would give you health and enlightenment, etc., etc. And so that's why I've taught it freely. I've taught it freely because I believe it's something that everybody should do. It's completely safe. It doesn't matter. You don't have to. If you do it, it won't shoot you into the stratosphere and the crazy bizarre. It'll just allow you to connect to the earth and be a comfortable, happy, healthy human. And it will be very healing. So that's why I've given it out freely for the past 20 years. And again, you can look for it on my channel, HUUL, breath. So that's the origin of the Hool breath. But when you hear me chant the Hool breath, my voice does the same kind of thing it does, you can hear in the background with the Huar breath. Now, I've never been trained in any kind of Tibetan throat singing, and there isn't any other mantras that I know of that I'm able to do this. But as I was chanting the Hool breath, my body and my voice would do this sort of, this Tibetan throat singing, multi-octave chanting. I was like, oh, that's interesting. It felt good and I enjoyed it. I recommend still that you don't try and copy that. In fact, as I'm talking about it, what I'd like for you to know is that I've always envisioned that doing this mantra surrounded by a bunch of people and everybody hitting a different octave. So in my mind, I can hear, higher voices reaching much higher pitches than that, and people even going lower than I am, and creating this multi-octave chant. And it doesn't have to be everybody starting H at the same time and L at the same time. People can be coming in at different places. So I want to give you the freedom to do that, especially when we're doing the live Huar breath. I want you to find your octave. Don't try and copy my octave. Find yours. And when you find a way that the octaves can, a higher octave and a lower octave hit together and it creates a really beautiful sound, I encourage you to do that. So I just want to be clear on that. What I do is what my body does. You don't have to try and copy what I do. In fact, I don't recommend that you try and copy what I do. Let your body do what it does with these technologies. So that's the history of the Hul breath. So fast forward to modern times. Now, modern times. 20 years ago is a long time. When you get to be my age, it doesn't feel like that long, but it's an entire adult between then and now, and many adults have been born. There are now adult people that weren't alive when I first learned the Hul breath. 2022, I'm back in that same house that I was in June of 2022 here in Florida. And I did, as you know, if you haven't watched it, go and watch my video. You can find it in the Aliens playlist, how I became an extraterrestrial, and you can see what I did to start having the experiences I'm having now. And as you know, I did human-initiated contact with higher dimensional extraterrestrial beings, and I was successful at that. And I was initiated by a being that touched my crown, which of course is my pineal, and said, I'm initiating you into a very powerful shamanic experience, which continues until this day. But certainly for the first 6-9 months, I was in just a crazy shamanic transformation, and it almost destroyed me. I'm grateful because it took me to the edge of my ability, and I wanted that. So during that experience, I had taken a break from communicating with the higher dimensional beings because I was struggling with my sanity. And looking back on it in hindsight, my third dimensional reality was coming apart and expanding, so I could expand into the higher dimensional reality that I'm now sort of half in and half out of. And so I had to take some time off because I was starting to lose it. I was starting to lose my ability to stay cohesive. And so I think a week or two went by, and as I was lying in that couch right there and I was watching the big screen TV they got in this house, which is right next to the window, I see this huge red, and it was an electric red sphere, and it looked enormous, and it was bright red, neon, like electric bright red, and it was around sunset, maybe just before or just after sunset, and there was a bunch of clouds, and out of the clouds came down this huge red ball, and I went, what the is that? And I got up and ran to the window, and by the time I got to the window, it was gone. So within a split second, it disappeared. It just appeared long enough for me to see it. Now, I realized the reason why that happened is because, number one, these beings aren't trying to freak anybody out. And so this being was just trying to get my attention because I was actively, not interacting with them for reasons I already told you. And so when I saw that, I ran to the window and I went, okay, somebody's trying to get my attention. The other reason that that ship didn't stick around is because these beings are actively being hunted by the Dark Force elites who have technology to shoot down extraterrestrial craft that when they phase into our third dimension, they become vulnerable to the Dark Force human weapons. So as soon as that being got my attention. He shifted back into a higher dimensional state. And for at least those two reasons, so that it wouldn't flip out anybody else and that they wouldn't get targeted. Interestingly enough, the next day I saw military helicopters flying around. Whether that's a coincidence or not, I don't know. More than likely he might have gotten tagged, and he was literally putting his life at risk to be able to teach us this. So I want you to know the sacrifice that was made by these beings to bring this to us. So that happened, and then it was gone, and I said, okay, I got it. This being is being kind, is not energetically showing up and shifting me to a higher dimension, which is normally what happens, because I wasn't having any of it at the moment. And being just said, I'm here. And I knew it was an invitation. Can we talk? Can we interact? I knew that's what it meant. So I sat down and I started meditating, and I said, yes, you are welcome to come and visit me in my home. And the energy came in, of course, shifted out of the third dimension. I wasn't able to see, but clearly some being was there. I could feel it, incredibly powerful, very blissful. And this being began to guide me into different meditations and different mantras. And among them was this Huar breath. Now that started out with me being shown to do the Hul breath. So I started doing the Hul breath, and then that being started tweaking it. And I didn't know where it was going. It's not like the being spelled it out and said, chant this. I was chanting what I already knew, and I was following the energy and the placement of it. And before I knew it, I was chanting this and I was following the tone, and then when I felt it, the power of it, and I could feel all the crazy things happening, I knew that this being was teaching me a mantra. Now, I didn't know what the significance of it was. I experimented with it. Just like I did with the Hul breath, I experimented with what I was given. And then I have what we have now. So after 2 years of experimentation on my part, as well as teaching it to others and getting information back from them, and continued teaching and refining from higher dimensional teachers, I have this information to let you know what this mantra is. So this is how the Huar mantra activates the 5D earth shift. So I've come to find out that this is the sound, as we've said already, this is the sound of the 5D solar flash event. And it is the sound that allows you to choose your frequency. And also it's the sound that allows you to evolve beyond the third dimensional devaluation. And as I've said in many videos, the third dimension holds itself together by the frequency of devaluation. And I've just learned this again at a very deep level. Without going into any specifics of people, I have run into situations more that have proven to me without a doubt that even very advanced, spiritually advanced teachers who are masters in all kinds of things, they're still third dimensional beings. And when I've introduced these kinds of principles, the response from them is, when they're presented with it, they deny it and they reject it, and they go back to and then I see them devaluing themselves and devaluing others. But it's happening on such a subtle level, and it's at the level of people's ability to achieve awareness that they're not aware. They don't realize that what keeps them there, even if they're doing a spiritual practice, what keeps them in the third dimension, eventually you bump into self-devaluation. So imagine here's the roof, right? The self-devaluation roof. And here's where the average person is. And then you have a bunch of spiritual people doing yoga and mantra and meditation, and they're in here. So they're not actively devaluing you. In fact, they're bringing you to a less devalued state. But when they reach this level where they go beyond, interestingly enough, all of a sudden, out of the depths of them comes this abusive devaluation energy, which keeps people in the third dimension. So there are people that are doing all kinds of practices out there that are actually, still within the 3D realm, but they're still able to hold on to a measure of devaluation. And it's not until you really get to that outer level and start pushing beyond it that then you see them devalue themselves and devalue others. So it's not a judgment. It's, we are programmed for the third dimension. And the third dimension survives on self-devaluation. So this mantra breaks out of that. And ever since I've been doing this mantra, ever since I've been doing this practice, there have been more and more people in my periphery that I've run into, some people I've known a long time, who have actively flipped on me and started attacking me in the most bizarre, irrational ways. And even in one instance, somebody said, "Your frequency angers me." And I went, "Oh, that's interesting." Because this mantra is about shifting your frequency. And the third dimension is a frequency, and it's a frequency contained within self-devaluation. And one of the most interesting experiences that I have had, and everybody that I've talked to who interacts with light beings, is that one of the first experiences people have is they feel shame, they feel guilt, and then oftentimes they go into this paranoid state where they think that these beings are manipulating them and lying to them, until you stop and you go, wait a minute, what are they lying to me about? Hey, actually, they're not lying. All they've done is loved me and told me really amazing things about myself. Where did I come up with this idea that they're attacking me and lying to me? Well, that's this self-devaluation of the third dimension kicking in to keep you in there, because we believe that this will keep us alive. We've been programmed before we came here. We programmed ourselves in this world to be at that level, and it feels like we're dying when we go beyond it. So the Huar breath is, like Odin, dying to your smaller ego self. You're dying to the third dimension. It is a destructive mantra in that it destroys the frequency of the third dimensional self-devaluation. So let's take a look at it. So the first sound is Hu. Now, Hu, this is a sound that is found universally. The Taoist sound for the earth is Hu. And it's also found in I believe in the Sikh tradition, Hu. It's, there's a cult that stole from the Sikh tradition, Ekankar. I won't get into it, but whoever did that, they were training with a Sikh, and then they stole some stuff and turned it around into something else. And they chant Hu, and that's somebody mispronouncing Hu. Hu. And so if you've heard that before, so Hu, comes also from the Sikh tradition, and it's found all over the world. Hu. But I was taught, when I sought out, I was given Hul, which has a whole other thing which I've talked about, which I won't get into. So Hu is the grounding, healing aspect of the earth. It's the earth element, and it's why everybody can do it, and it doesn't matter if you do it for 3 hours straight or for 10 minutes. It's healing and helpful, and it will only help you and balance you. It balances you and the Hul breath itself with the L actually balances you emotionally as well as physically. So that's the first sound, is Hu. It's the planet Earth. Ar. This is gamma solar radiation. So Huar, one interpretation is Earth being hit with higher dimensional solar radiation, or what people call, the people have talked about, the event have talked about gamma radiation coming from the central sun into our sun being released onto the earth. By the way, Scientists have come to the same conclusion, who know nothing about the ascension event, who know nothing about the solar flash event. And you can go look for it on YouTube. I don't have the links for it, but you can go look for it. And you will find that there are scientists who are saying that the Earth is getting hit recently with very high levels of gamma radiation, and it's coming from the sun, and that is impossible. The sun doesn't have the ability. And so they're coming to the conclusion that somehow, they also say that gamma radiation comes from the central black hole at the center of the universe, which the spiritual crowd is calling the central sun, which is a black hole. And so scientists are saying what these spiritual people have been saying for 20 years, that there's going to be high levels of gamma radiation that'll be sent through a wormhole to our sun, which will be sent to our Earth, which will shift us up to 5D. And scientists are saying we're getting hit with gamma radiation from the sun, and the sun isn't capable. It doesn't have the ability to create that. So somehow the sun is transmitting gamma radiation from the central black hole. Scientists are saying the exact same thing that the spiritual crowd has been saying for 20 years. And of course, they don't have any idea. They have no idea that they're parroting what sounded completely impossible, because, 10 years ago, you heard 20 years ago people saying the central sun is going to send gamma radiation through a wormhole to our sun. That's just ridiculous. That's impossible. And now you hear scientists saying it, and they can't explain it. Well, so that's the R sound. The AR sound is that gamma solar radiation. So Hu-ar is the Earth getting hit by gamma solar radiation. Hu can be translated as the third dimension. Ar can be translated as the fifth dimension. So Hu-ar means 3D to 5D. And then let's take each specific syllable, and this is we're looking at the runes as well as other sciences. So the H sound. So the H sound is self-directed examination leading to healing. So the term Hagalaj is the H rune. It's also can be pronounced Hayalaj. And Hayal means heal. It's where we get the word heal from, Hayal. So Hagal means healing, but actually what Hagal is it is a cleansing. So there, in the runes, there are two types of cleansing. One is self-initiated, which is Hagalaj, and the other one is Yuhwaj, which is the U rune. And this is not self-initiated. This is when you go through a shamanic awakening against your will. In other words, it's very challenging. So it's a life to death challenging, and you're screaming throughout all of it, but you come out the other side awakened and aware. So there's two ways to have awakening. One is self-initiated, and the other is it happens to you. So this shift from 3D to 5D is self-initiated. That's why there's going to be 3 Earths. There's going to be people who won't make it, not because they're being excluded. It's not like the Christian thing where if you don't accept our religion, God excludes you and throws you into hell. It's that everyone can shift up, but you have to choose. If you don't consciously choose to shift up, you'll stay where you are, or if you resist it, you'll shift down. But it's your choice. This is why I say here, this is choose your frequency. This mantra gives you the ability to choose. So this is the H sound. The H sound is self-directed examination leading to healing. The U sound, this is Uruj. And Uruj is a descending power. It means spiritual energy manifesting, descending into the physical. So it means manifestation. And it's the most powerful rune there is for pure power. So what is power? In our physical world, when we feel power, it is power that is coming, that is manifesting. We're literally like right under, as pure energy is coming into physical manifestation. So this is why it's connected with physical power. Uruj means the bison, the prehistoric bison of Europe, which was seen as the most powerful animal in Europe, and it was incredibly powerful. In fact, the Uruj sign is the bison with his horns down. So you're looking at a bison that's coming at you, and so that is an extinct animal. It was, our cows were were bred to be milder versions, so they're much, they're placated versions of the Uruj, which was the most wild beast there was, and it represented pure power, pure sexuality, which is what the ability to create sexually, and it's typically a masculine energy, and if you're a guy and you want to be sexually potent, you chant that. Feel it. Give it a try if you don't believe me. Chant Uruj or Ooh. So this is the power of manifestation. So the H sound is self-directed examination leading to healing, which means transformation. The U sound, which means spiritual energy descending into the physical. And then the next sound, Ah. This is Ansuj. Ansuj translates as divine communication. So this means this is coming directly from the divine sources. So the Ah sound will open you up to be able to connect and communicate directly with the gods, the realm of the gods, which is what? Higher dimensions. So Ah means higher dimensional access, higher dimensional energy, the language of the gods. And then Ar, Raito, means solar initiated transformation. The sun in Egypt was called Ra. When you talk about the rays of the sun, it's Re, the ray of the sun. Ar sound. So Raito means the correct, true path of the sun. The sun takes, Raido means one path, the path of truth, the true path, the rules, if you will, the regulations, because the sun always follows the same path. If the sun didn't follow the same path, we would be in serious trouble. So it represents the order, and the sun is that. So Huar means divine communication coming directly from the sun. So you can, put all these together and come up with all different kinds of translations. These are the ones that I've come up with. And so, this is, again, 2 years of practice and examination and, downloads about what this mantra is. But I want to give you some more information. So again, this throat singing thing that happens with me, I'm not doing that on purpose. I never have. For whatever reason, it just happens. I've never been trained in that, and it doesn't happen when I chant other mantras. It only happens when I do the Hul breath and the Huar breath. So I take that to mean something. Now, while I don't take any ego about this, the objective fact is, unless this has been given to somebody else, I am the Rishi who has been transmitted this mantra. I didn't make it up. It was chanted to me and taught to me by a mantis being who is clearly one of my teachers. So he was teaching me the mantra. I've come to find out that my job, again, I have no ego attachment to this. I've just finally come to accept this, that my job is that I am the one who is bringing the solar flash event through these techniques. I'm not the only, way that the solar flash is coming, but I'm the guy who's bringing this mantra. And my job is to do these live interdimensional meditations and to bring as many people as want to, so that ideally we have hundreds, thousands, and millions of people chanting this all at once, bringing the solar flash event. So this is my job. This is what I've been tasked to do. And since that's the case, I'm the Rishi of this mantra, which I believe will continue to be, similar as we go into the future. The Om mantra and before the Om mantra was the Ing mantra. But the Om mantra, somebody was the rishi for that, and I don't know who that was. I'm the rishi for the Huar mantra. Again, doesn't mean anything other than I'm just the guy that they gave it to. So the point is that I'm trying to tell you that this is an extremely significant piece of spiritual technology, and that it has far more power than we can even begin to imagine. And somebody had to be the recipient of it. It just turned out I was the guy that showed up that day. So this mantra is, how it does what it does is something we will continue to discover. But I've been, of course, investigating it, experiencing it, and I had this really interesting comment that came through to the channel. This person says, just a heads up, the recorded Huar chant is somewhere around a half step between B and C, 382 hertz or so. And I realize there is little chance of me bringing this to your attention without coming off as nitpicky and or conceited. You're hitting a C, just a heads up. It's unfair to you since you're showing yours and I'm not showing mine, right? I mean, I don't know what that means, but I was like, what is this person trying to say? And so I interacted with them and I'm like, so 382 hertz, what does that mean? I looked it up and I said, I found that it was the frequency of gold. I also found it was the frequency of the brain and the pituitary, and I'm thinking perhaps the pineal. I also found a video for the throat chakra at 382 hertz. So what do you think that means? Because I wasn't sure where this person was coming from. And then this person says, well, where I was going with it is that it is dissonant in the video. You're sharp. So I'm not a musician, I'm not a singer. So I guess he's saying that I'm singing it wrong, that I'm doing a bad job. I guess those are bad things. When you're singing, opera, or you're singing, you're composing, and you're being sharp is bad. Being dissonant is bad, I imagine. So he says, you're sharp. Seriously, he says, I seriously detest saying it out loud because it's so disrespectful, but it shows his inability to, I know because I've been there, his inability to control himself. I have to tell you where you're wrong based on my thing of what I think is right and wrong. So he goes on to say, the chase for perfection is a fool's game, so I guess that's where the topic of gold could enter into it, and then he turns it into some other weird thing. Because I thought he was trying to give me some, I'm assuming it's a he, it might be a she. The person was trying to give me here's some cool stuff about what you're doing, and what they were saying is you're doing it wrong. It's bad, and here's why. So I went, so if I'm understanding you, you're telling me that my chanting sucks. It's dissonant. And this is your only point? My thought was, like you said, this is such a profound subject, and the only thing you're saying is that my chanting sucks? And so I said, so you're telling me that it sucks, right? And he says, no, I'm not, which is why I came with all the preamble. The oscillation is just jarring. What can I say? Which again sounds like somebody saying it's not quite right. I don't like it. Here's my judgment. I wish it wasn't that way. It's bothering me. And I thought about that, the jarring aspect. And to my credit, it didn't offend me. It would have offended me in the past. I probably would have got offended by feeling criticized, but I didn't. Because I've had that experience. My first experience when I recorded this and when I chanted it was, I don't like the way this sounds. But it reminds me of the people who, in one case, somebody who I loved. I literally loved this person. Not romantically, but I deeply loved and cared for this person, and I told them that. And I've never once attacked this person. I never once criticized them. Never once. I only helped them and told them wonderful things. And out of the blue, this person came attacking me, calling me all kinds of horrible names, accusing me of being a psychopath and an abuser and a cult leader and all kinds of things. that were just coming out of left field and was so deeply hurtful. And at one point, this person says, "I don't like your frequency." And I listened to that. So the fact that this mantra can be a jarring frequency, what could that mean? That's when I started thinking, well, what could that mean? Maybe I'm just doing it wrong. Maybe my technique sucks and I'm doing it wrong and it's jarring and I'm dissonant and I'm not doing it right. But, you know, I like the way that it sounds. I like the way that it feels, even though when I sometimes listened to it, it felt strange. And other people would say it's a difficult, people would say it's a difficult sound. And that's not the only person that said that. So either I just have a bad technique and I'm doing it wrong, or there's something to it. And so, anyway, I think I was looking at the wrong frequency here. Anyway, I think I started looking at the wrong frequency. Anyway, but in terms of that jarring oscillation, what I've continued to understand is that I believe I could be wrong. I think it's part of the mantra. I think it's part of the frequency of it, to create this jarring experience. Because again, when I first started with the Hool breath, it's because I was having this dissonant energetic experience, which was destructive. And the Hool breath aligned it. So if this sound really does have a dissonant effect, then what we're talking about is we're talking about the universe bringing a different frequency that is disrupting the third dimensional frequency, and again, somebody who, this person, I'm not naming names, but this person who attacked me is somebody who had a lot of unresolved emotional, unconscious trauma, which again is self-devaluation. And healing from trauma is always healing the self-devaluation within oneself, which is extremely challenging. You think, learning how to love yourself, that's easy. No, it isn't. Because this three-dimensional world is set up that if you want to be accepted, you must allow yourself to be devalued. This is what being rich is. This is what being famous. Rich, famous people are the most isolated, screwed up people in the world. Don't believe me? Michael Jackson. Take a look at his last life. I could name people that are still alive that were very famous, and you can look at their lives now, and they're rich and they're getting old, and they're the most miserable people on the planet. Prince is another one. Prince was very famous and very, very successful, and he died a drug addict, a miserable, lonely drug addict, even with all his money and fame. So those are just two examples, and I'm not, talking about anybody alive. The dead people, they're already dead, so I'm not damaging them, but they're good examples of that. That self-devaluation is what gives you, third dimensional status. So we've been taught to devalue ourselves as a self-protection mechanism to be loved and accepted. So to shift out of 3D to 5D means we have to die to all of the ways in which we have been trained and which we have followed in order to be loved and accepted. How you look, what you do, who you are, how much money you have, all of that, getting in order to be accepted, all of that is self-devaluation. Forget about you. You have no value except your participation to the whole of the machine. This is communism. This is also, communism and fascism are just, two sides of the same coin. Same thing. You have no value except what you give to the state, or you have no value except how much money you make to the elites. That's fascism. The previous one is communism. And so it all has to do with self-devaluation. And our society is based on a Ponzi scheme, which is self-devaluation. Richness, having money, having fame, all that, it's all based on self-devaluation. And our society is a Ponzi scheme. So to break out of that means that you have to be willing to give up being loved by the people that you psychologically see as your parents. People see the state as their parent. And your parents, your parents might be devaluing. People who have lots of trauma have trauma because they have a conflict within themselves, because their self says, I'm valuable, I'm worth something, and their parents say, you're a worthless piece of crap. If you want me to love you, you have to let me tell you how crappy you are and abuse you in all these different ways. And so you have to choose between loving yourself or being loved by the people who are providing for you and protecting for you. And so this is abuse. Abuse is the Stockholm syndrome. You give up your own value and you accept other people's value, and you start to believe and get gaslit into what a horrible piece of garbage you are. And then you virtue signal, which is what goes on at political rallies. People virtue signal, and it's the same as church. I believe in Jesus. You virtue signal and throw yourself away in order to be accepted. In fact, I mentioned Christianity. Christianity is a great example. I was a Christian for years. I know. I'm not judging from outside. I was one for years. And Christians virtue signal by saying how sinful they are. How sinful they are, how unworthy they are, but God accepted me anyway. And you are more spiritual the more you devalue yourself by saying how unworthy you are of God's love. So to go to 5D is to go into the complete opposite, and I know that because these light beings for the past 2 years have been continuously pouring all of this love on me, which has been very traumatizing, because to find out that you are in fact God, that you are in fact important, that your happiness is more important than anything else, and that the most spiritual thing you can do is to meet your own needs and create your own happiness, which is the opposite of religion, which says to carry your cross, deny yourself, and then God will love you. Be like Jesus. Allow them to crucify you for something you didn't do. Then you're a good person. Then you're worthy. Then you're righteous. That is the third dimension. And the fifth dimension is completely the opposite. And so in order to shift to the fifth dimension, you have to go through the trauma of healing beyond self-devaluation, which feels like you're killing yourself. So the point I'm trying to make is that that's why this person said, your frequency angers me, and then began to accuse me of things that weren't true. Because what it meant is that my frequency was so disruptive, so dissonant to her third dimensional self-devaluation experience that she had two choices. She could either allow herself to be seen the way I saw her, which is I constantly told her how beautiful she was and how much I loved her. Again, not in a romantic way, but just in a personal way. And she could either accept that and die to her self-protective mechanism of self-devaluation, which unconsciously allowed her to feel loved by her abusive parents, or she could reject her parents in her mind, reject the self-devaluation, and accept the self-love that I was helping her to experience. So she had two choices. She had to demonize somebody. So she, in the attempt to stay unconsciously in the third dimension, she attacked me and called me a psychopath abuser, blah, 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 and I don't like your frequency. So what I'm bringing to your attention is that when we do these live guided interdimensional meditations and we're surrounding Earth and we are chanting this mantra with our astral bodies, what is happening is that this frequency is going into Earth's third dimensional frequency, and it's creating that dissonant, it's destroying the third dimension from within. And this is why people are flipping out. This is why all of the lies are coming to the surface. The lies can't come to the surface until people start to realize they're in a cult. And we could call the third dimension a cult. As the same, it functions in the same way. Dysfunctional families and cults all function in the same way. They devalue you. You virtue signal by telling the world what a piece of crap you are, and that's why I'm good. And your parents say you're a piece of crap, and you say, yes, I am, Mommy, yes, I am, Daddy, and they say, good, now you can stay with us, just shut up and do your. And even within the third dimension, spirituality goes, wakes you up until you get to this part where you have to shift beyond the limit of it, and then all of a sudden the devaluation comes out in order to keep you in the third dimension. I'm not going to get into details, we could, but this is what I've run into. This is what I've run into with spiritual practitioners and people whom I respect. Once we get to that level of just getting ready to go beyond the third dimension, then all of a sudden the hidden self-devaluation cult mentality pops in out of nowhere to keep you humble, keep you in the third dimension. So this is the most revolutionary sound that has ever come to the earth. That's why nobody's had it before. Hu sound, the Hul sound, that still works within the third dimension. Huar means destroying Hu, destroying the third dimension, creating a new one. So if you want this, this is what we're accomplishing, and I encourage you to look into it. And as always, be aware of what the ascension symptoms are. Oh, sorry, that's something else. Is there another? Where's the ascension symptoms? Anyway, I don't know if I have them here. Solar flash symptoms, ascension symptoms. Is this it? Nope. Is this it? 10 symptoms of solar flash 5D shifting. First one is intense anxiety. Second is emotional sensitivity. Third is fears and paranoia. Fourth is increased spiritual awareness, ironically. Fifth is increased psychic awareness. Sixth is physical detox symptoms. 7 is dreams and visions. 8 is spiritual visitations from higher dimensional beings. 9 is confusion. And 10 is feeling you're in two worlds. The confusion is not knowing. This is, again, when you're coming out of a cult. I've come out of, now 2 cult-like environments. One was Christianity and the other one was a cult experience. I guess the third one would be my dysfunctional home. So I've come out of 3 cult experiences so far in my life. And coming out is confusion. You confuse and conflate. So this is part of it. If you're confused about what's going on and who you are and what you are, this is part of it. Feeling guilty, feeling shameful. And this happens, we're getting hit with a lot more solar energy, almost on a daily basis. We're getting hit with solar energy. And I wake up on almost a daily basis feeling, unsettled and anxious and all of that. And I have to continually remind myself to breathe and relax into it and shift up and know that this is part of shifting out of the self-devaluation of the third dimension. And the Huar breath, when we do these meditations, sometimes the next day I got to hold myself together because I'm coming apart. So if you're having these experiences, know that you're doing just fine. We have this live group Zoom class discussion group, and I'm getting ready to close. I may create a second one, but I may close this one pretty quick because it's starting to fill up, which is great, and I want people, but if it gets to a certain point, we'll close it at a certain level. So if you want to get in and be a part of this, and this live Zoom class and discussion group, if you're doing these meditations and you're having experiences and you're wondering if you're losing your mind, if you want to know if my experiences are real, because that's another big one, this is what we do. We create a new consensus, which is what we're going to need to do to shift to 5D. When we shift to 5D, it's going to be because we have a new consensus of what reality is. And the third dimension is held together by the collective consensus of the world. So this solar flash event is destroying that consensus. Don't believe me? Just flip on YouTube and you'll see all of the narrative crumbling and people flipping out in all different directions and the whole world flipping out. That's the consensus coming apart. So we need a new one. When you do these interdimensional meditations, you are given access to a new consensus. If you're by yourself, it's going to be hard to integrate it. So when we get together and there's a group of us and we get to share, it's not a cult. I'm not telling you what to believe. I sit back and people share their own experiences, and together we create a new consensus, and it's really healing and really empowering. So I invite you to that. Go to thunderwizard.com and look for the different subscriptions if you want. Again, once I get to a certain level, we're going to have to close off that group. Maybe I'll make another one. We'll see. Anyway, that's it for me, guys. The Huar mantra, choose your frequency. And again, if you want to be a part of that, you can go today at 8:30 p.m. Eastern and do the live guided interdimensional meditation. Everything else is still there if you want to support the channel. Again, subscribe, like, comment, hit the bell button, do the live interdimensional meditations as often as possible. Follow and like Path of the Thunder Wizard on Facebook. Share Thunder Wizard YouTube video links and Facebook posts on social media. Subscribe to the thunderwizard.com Patreon site at whatever level you want. As long as you give financially, I'm allowed to pay my bills. I'm under major financial stress right now. So if you want me to stay doing this 24/7 and not start taking other stuff taking me away, then support the channel by subscribing in a monetary way. There's a bunch of different ways you can do that. You can also go to the shop. Browse the thunderwizard.com shop for the advanced practices, and please remember, I do need your support to keep this channel going. Most important thing you can do is to come do the live interdimensional meditations and share that with as many people as you can. Bring as many people on that. First goal is to shift the world out of 3D, and that's my main goal in my life right now. So I appreciate all of you showing up. That's it. I love you all. Thank you so much. Remember, you are the most important being that ever existed. The world exists because of you. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't exist. The main reason for the world is to give you the greatest joy and pleasure. The world was created for your joy, your pleasure. You are God. You are the most powerful, the most important being that has ever existed. And come and join us later in the meditation to experience that on a deeper level. Thank you so much for everything that you do, and I love you all, and I will see you all very soon. Please take very good care of yourselves. Thank you so much.